All right, let's dive into a question that could literally change everything you think you know about, well, everything. What if a huge, massive chapter in our history books, the whole age of empires, just never happened?
You know, we usually think of history as this straight path, right? One thing happens, then the next, and poof, here we are. But what if it's not a straight line? What if you could just pull one chapter out of the book and suddenly the entire story changes direction?
And that's the heart of what we're talking about today. Just try to picture it. A world where the great age of exploration wasn't about domination. A world with no British Empire, no scramble for Africa, none of those centuries of colonial rule. What would our world even look like today? Okay, so to even begin to imagine this, we have to find that exact moment where history forks. The spot where our reality goes one way and this other world, well, it goes another. We call this the point of divergence. So in this alternate timeline, it's not like the world just stops. Ships are still sailing, different cultures are absolutely meeting each other, trade is happening. But here's the huge difference. That jump from hello to we're in charge now, from simple trade to outright exploitation, that leap just never happens. And that one little change is, well, monumental.
And you can see the results of that shift right here. On one side, you've got our timeline. You see European powers literally drawing lines on a map and carving up entire continents, like what happened with the Scramble for Africa. But on the other side, that's the alternate path. You have independent African and Asian nations just continuing to do their thing, growing and changing on their own terms, making their own futures.
This whole idea, historical divergence, it's basically the engine driving this whole thought experiment. Think of it like the butterfly effect, but for all of human history. So let's look at the very first ripple effect from this one massive change, and that's culture.
Right away, the biggest, most immediate change would be culture. I mean, you'd have a world where just countless traditions get to grow and evolve without anyone hitting the pause button.
Seriously, try to imagine it. A world where maybe thousands more languages are still spoken today, where local art styles just keep developing on their own for centuries. And this isn't about things being frozen in time, not at all. It's about a world where tons of different cultures just get to keep evolving, without that constant pressure to conform to one single dominant culture. And it's not just about preserving what was there, it's about creating something new. You'd get these incredible new philosophies, brand new art movements, all bubbling up from dozens of different independent melting pots around the globe. Countries would build their identities based on their own histories, their own struggles, not just as a reaction to some foreign power.
So, if you have all these cultures flourishing on their own, that leads to a pretty big question, doesn't it? If all the power wasn't just sitting in Europe, what would the world map of power actually look like?
Okay, this is where things get really wild. The entire map of global power gets completely redrawn. We're talking totally new alliances, totally new rivalries, a whole different set of rules for the world.
So instead of just Europe calling the shots, you'd see these regional giants rise up. Maybe a super powerful West African confederation, building on the history of amazing empires like Mali or Songhai, and they'd be the ones controlling trade across the Atlantic. Or what about a massive unified maritime empire in Southeast Asia? Their friendships and their fights would be what defines global politics, not what's decided in London or Paris.
And the knock-on effects? They'd be huge. The big international groups, the major trade routes, even how we define what it means to be a global power. All of it, completely different. The center of the world, economically and politically, wouldn't be in one place. It'd be all over the map. Of course, you have to ask about war. I mean, it'd be naive to think conflict would just vanish. But the huge wars of our 20th century, so many of them were tied up in empires fighting each other or post-colonial messes. Maybe those get avoided, but they'd probably be replaced by totally new kinds of conflicts between these new global players.
But wait a second. What's really fueling these new nations? I mean, power isn't just about armies and money, right? It's about ideas. It's about innovation. So, what would science and technology look like in a world like this?
This is where the very idea of progress takes a different path. The story of science wouldn't just be centered on Europe. It would be a story told by the entire world.
You could have multiple scientific revolutions kicking off at the same time, in different places. Can you imagine huge breakthroughs in technology coming out of, say, Timbuktu or Malacca? They'd be driven by completely different problems, different ways of thinking. The whole definition of what progress even is would be totally up for grabs.
Okay, so let's pull all of this back to right here, right now. This isn't just some fun historical game.
What does imagining this other world really tell us about the one we're actually in?
Just think about today, December 29, 2025. If this was that alternate world and you were living your life, almost nothing you take for granted would be the same. The way our society is built, it would be, well, you wouldn't even recognize it.
Think about it. Our economies, the way our societies are structured, who our countries are allied with, all of that is a direct echo of that colonial past. Take that away, and the world of 2025 is standing on a completely different foundation.
So, in the end, this whole thing isn't really about mourning some lost past. It's more like a pair of glasses. It helps us see our own world more clearly. It shows us just how much those old historical power dynamics are still pulling the strings today.
So I'll just leave you with this to chew on. By thinking about a world that doesn't exist, what did we just learn about the invisible forces that built the very ground we're standing on right now? That's a pretty heavy thought, but a powerful one to carry with you.